We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to the Lower Gwinnett regularly scheduled Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022. I want to first open it up to comments from the public for any items not on the agenda. Anyone present? You just come on up, state your name and your address.
My name is Michael Vanderswan. I live at 6 Richards Way at the Carriages at Lower Gwinnett. One of my neighbors is here as well, and we need your help.
Okay.
Before I explain why we need your help, let me say that for the past 3 weeks, I've had a wonderful time, some of the best times I've had since I've lived here, because I knocked on about 40 doors and I never found so many people so happy to see me and to hear what I had to say. Frankly, it's about cell phone coverage. You probably know that. We've had very bad service for the past year and a half that I've lived there. And we really didn't think that we were going to have a problem if we put in some real professional high-tech equipment throughout the whole house. But that isn't the case. Verizon phones are dropped, Samsung has dropped, AT&T, Comcast, it doesn't matter. I've spoken to everybody imaginable. I don't know who else to turn to. The people that I knocked on the doors and the people that I called, they said the same things. They just don't know what to do. We've been in touch with the Federal Communication Commission, and they said, well, we'll have Verizon get in touch with you. The Verizon people got back in touch with my wife, and he said, well, we really can't tell you what we can do to help you inside your house. We can perhaps look at what's going on outside of the environment, but we're not responsible to provide service inside the house. So you might think this is just a nuisance that once in a while we drop a call, but we drop a call almost every day, almost all the time. And what sparked me to take on this effort is about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe it was a bad day weather-wise. I don't know if that affects it, but I was on the phone for maybe 12 or so calls I had to make, and every single one of them kept getting dropped. And yeah, it's a big nuisance with the phone friends. But in fact, my wife had a 911 call. She had a 911. After I think chiropractic, it was horrible during the COVID control. In the parking lot, use your cell phone to call in, couldn't get connected. We couldn't get connected with them to say that it's time to connect your appointment. So everybody in the carriages, the 15 residents, all the same. So I knocked on 3 doors, and every single building, business that I went to, all had the same. There's on Fenton Pike and Woodbridge Road. They have them on. Our buildings, Silver Spring, Jersey, I would still AC Catholic, but again, bring out my associates. Campbell Chiropractic, PGA professional, put up a section. CDS in Summitown, I don't stop looking, I don't cross the street. Summitown, CDS in Summitown. Castillo Preschool, brand new, and the leaders was at the orthodontics. Those people, they work in that new building, that
we do know this. So you're right in the dead zone. Like I think most people that live in Lower Gwinnett or travel through Lower Gwinnett know that once you get to that point on Penland Pike, your call is going to get dropped. And we have supervisors who live on that area, and both of them experience the dead zones. It also extends all the way down to Penland. The community and village of Penland is completely a dead zone. So if you go back in there, it's almost like you don't have a cell phone. So we've reached out to many entities because it's not a function of we don't put up our own towers, but we can kind of try and ask people to bring in their services. So we've had 2 presentations thus far this year where one individual kind of talked about what they would have done as far as the mapping, identifying the dead zones, and we kind of, yeah. And so yeah. We also had another presentation by a company who actually puts up towers, who contracts out with the actual cell phone agents like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and kind of works with them to put up towers. And we've kind of almost like talked to them as far as what needs to happen. And really what needs to happen is the carrier has to identify that this is an area that is in need. But there's additional help that's come out, and it just really came out few days ago. So on November 18th, the FCC released pre-production draft of the National Broadband Map. And basically what they're looking for is for us as consumers and government entities to identify areas of no coverage. Right now they're accepting public comment. We were going to look into seeing if we could kind of collect the public comment as it relates to Lower Gwinnett, since we're all well aware of the areas where there are dead zones or dropped calls or just intermittent service, and release it wholly. I don't think we've gotten clarification of if we can, but we're working on that. Again, this was just released November 18th. Today's only the 22nd. So we're looking to ways that we can kind of combine and gather all that information for them and submit it on behalf of our residents to say, like, we definitely have a problem. We're well aware of our problem. It was exacerbated and as you know, for people who depended upon internet to do schooling and to do working from home and who had no ability. So it is a significant issue that we need to address. We can't compel or we can't force the different carriers to bring a tower to us, but we're trying our best to. But I appreciate all the work that you did. Okay. So you've done it for us. Yeah. Can you give it to our manager? Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I have your name correctly. Van Lawson? No? Yeah. Say it one more time. Vanderswan. Thank you. Vanderbilt? Yeah. Thank you.
I will be happy to do anything you ask of me to help you get the information you need.
Okay.
It's my understanding that wireless realty advisors, company come here and map the area, provided a validated map of all the dead zones in this area.
That is one thing that they would do now. So that they did have, there was a fee associated with it. So they would map it for us. And then I think one of the concerns that we had or kind of expressed is that then they kind of pitch it again to the carriers to say, would you be interested in trying to address it? Yeah. And I think that there would be a fee to the township as it relates to any services beyond the mapping. This is my understanding. I could be.
Yeah. So the mapping itself is
fee based.
No.
Yeah. That's the part that's free.
They do all the mapping throughout the township.
Yeah.
It would be a program whereby we would engage all of our residents to log in, et cetera. Show when and where they're having their problems. That part is free. If we engage them for a poll, then that's when we get into the fee arrangement. But we can also take that data and talk to the second vendor that we spoke to, who actually erects the polls on township property, and we negotiate a fee. We receive some of the revenue, we receive others of the revenue, and they do all that negotiating with the providers. But I would be in favor of engaging Wireless Realty for that initial mapping. And I don't know if they have proprietary issues with it. Maybe we can pawn it off to the FCC with their initiative that they're doing, but I certainly would be in favor of doing the initial mapping.
He sent me the website. It's free to everyone. You just have to tell the residents or what if this is the website. You put it on your computer. You want to drop the call. You answer your questions. Where was it? What happened? What did you think? Done. So we get them up. Every single person that I spoke to would be more than happy.
Yeah, and I think it would be a nice message sent to our residents that we do hear you when we recognize the problem, and we can start here.
So this is an open issue that you've got some communication.
Oh, absolutely.
There's an open issue, it's all work.
Yeah.
demonstration.
We're actively
Yeah.
trying to resolve it.
That's out there.
Absolutely.
And I think the FCC is asking residents to do something similar to what wireless realty would do. We're trying to find out if the FCC, if there's a way for us to, as a municipality, we're aware of the dead zones, right? So is there a way of us as a municipality to report those issues to the FCC so that we don't have to rely on individual residents to go to this website every time they drop a call? Because, you know, people are busy and they may not do it. So I think it would be, I think we need to sort of track down what the FCC is looking for from a municipality. But I live in one of the dead zones and I work from home. So I'm with you on this concern. I've bought all the different routers. I've had long conversations with Verizon telling me that I have wonderful service in my area. And then it must be because my house is made of steel or I live in a bunker or something, which is not the case. Yeah, turn it off, turn it back on.
I don't see why not. Yeah, we can send it to you.
Yeah, I think it's public. Yeah, right? Maybe they just released this program. I think it's incumbent upon them or upon pursuant to some.
The website, I can email you. The website is broadband map. FCC. All one word, broadband.
They've got in touch with the township.
Well, it's a national
National.
issue. They're trying to understand where there is mobile coverage, where broadband access is lacking. It's sort of a part of a broader initiative, but they're asking individuals to participate, but there also seems to be, which we're trying to figure out the logistics of it, but it seems like municipalities can also report this information on behalf of, you know, exactly. And it would be collective, you know, it wouldn't just be one person logging in. You know, I call Verizon, they don't seem to care when I call them, but if an entire neighborhood calls, maybe it'll be helpful, but we are actively trying to sort through that.
And they're not just focused on mobile broadband, they're also looking at fixed broadband. So like the DSL and the fiber optics, all that good stuff.
Agreed.
No, understood.
So, this is the open field, and I can come back next month and ask you for products.
Absolutely. And Jamie has her contact. You have his, okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Any additional? Anybody online?
No.
Okay. Next up, we're going to have a public hearing for the Wissahickon School District conditional use application for the wetland encroachment to construct a turf field. That I'm going to turn it over to Neil Stein.
Thank you. This is a public hearing to consider the conditional use application of the Wissahickon School District for property located at 521 Houston Road. It's a little over 97 acres located within the A residential zoning district. The applicant is requesting conditional use approval pursuant to section 1298.17 of the township zoning ordinance to permit stormwater facilities to enter a portion of the wetlands buffer area. The stormwater facilities are part of the applicant's overall project to install turf fields in lieu of the existing grass fields. This conditional use requires that the board sit in a quasi judicial capacity, which means the atmosphere and decorum will be a little closer to a courtroom style. This is not an application to approve the plan itself. That will come at a later date. The procedure will be as follows. The applicant will present its case through witnesses and exhibits. The board will have the opportunity to question those witnesses. Anyone in the public may also question witnesses and present a comment. If there is anyone who desires party status, that means you can also appeal a decision. If you do want party status, now is the time to let us know that, both virtually and in person. I don't see anybody here in person desiring party status, nor is there anybody virtually. I have a few exhibits to mark before I turn it over to the applicant. Exhibit T1 is the application dated September 6, 2022 and accompanying plans. Exhibit T2 is the notice of hearing. Exhibit T3 are the proofs of publication for the original hearing date of November 7th. Exhibit T4 is the proof of posting of the property. Exhibit T5 are the proofs of publication for tonight's hearing. Exhibit T6 are the draft minutes of the Township Planning Commission meeting of November 16, 2022. Exhibit T7, the Montgomery County Planning Commission's letter of August 8, 2022. Exhibit T8 is the letter of the Township's transportation consultant, McMahon Associates, dated August 11, 2022. And Exhibit T9 is the Township Engineer, Gilmore and Associates review letter dated July 27, 2022. At this point, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, solicitor, and thank you for coming and hearing this application tonight. If it's okay, we'd like to give our exhibit we intend to packet for you.
Could you provide your name for the record, please?
My name is Richard Campbell. I'm an attorney.
Thanks. Are these the same plans that were submitted with the application?
Yes, that's correct. Just physical copy.
Okay, thank you.
Just logistically, when we call a witness, what would be best sort of microphones?
Wherever you would like.
If we could have him at the microphone because of being virtual, yeah.
Not sure.
Like I said, my name is Richard Campbell. I'm an attorney with Brian Bethlehem. I represent the applicant for the district who received approval.
You just wait one second. Is that microphone on? I'm getting messages that the microphone's not working.
Can you just, there should be like.
There's a switch there. Does that make a difference?
Can you just say something else?
Oh, it should work.
I'm sorry.
Does this one work? Oh, there we go. So yeah, I represent Wissahickon School District, the applicant who seeks approval of its conditional use application to the Board of Supervisors. As the board is well aware, a conditional use is permitted under the zoning ordinance, but the applicant has the burden to prove any specific or objective criteria that are within the ordinance. And of course, the board has the power to impose any reasonable conditions on the approval. Our application is made pursuant to sections 1298.17 and generally 1298.07 of the zoning ordinance, which establishes a minimum wetlands buffer of 25 feet and provides in relevant part, upon proof that no reasonable engineering alternative exists, stormwater management facilities may be permitted in the buffer by conditional use. At the outset, we'd like to note that the use requested here is really a de minimis request and consistent with the existing use, and that the encroachment into the buffer will be very slight, as we'll establish in testimony today. The proposed project and the request for conditional use has been reviewed by the Planning Commission and has received the requisite recommendation to proceed to the board for review. So we believe it is ripe for a decision here. And to provide the board some background and perspective on the project, we'd like to call our first witness from the school district, subject to if the board has any comment prior to that or anything they'd like to note.
You can proceed.
Yeah, we'll proceed. So we would call James Cairns. Would you like to?
Yes. First name James, J-A-M-E-S, last name Cairns, C-A-I-R-N-E-S. Yes. Thank you.
I'm going to give you them. I'll try to speak up. James, what's your position at the district?
I'm Director of Athletics and Activities at Wissahickon High School.
And what are your responsibilities in that position?
Basically to oversee all the extracurricular programs at the high school, both activities and clubs and athletics.
And could you give the board just a basic sense and description of this project?
This project at its core is taking the current varsity baseball and varsity softball fields that we have and just resurfacing them into a multi-purpose turf field.
Okay, I think this is on now. James, could you just discuss the background, sort of what exists currently, and then sort of how this alters that?
So if you're familiar with our facility, we have grass fields that are our baseball and softball fields. They're at the bottom of a student parking lot, and living in the northeast section of the United States, when you try to play spring sports, when you have rain or snow, it is really disadvantageous to our student athletes and all of our community members to get on the field to do what they love, and that's playing sports. So by putting a multi-purpose turf field on there, we will be able, if it rains in the morning, our kids in our community will still be able to get on the field, be active, and play the sports. It's simply not just the softball and baseball field. These multi-purpose fields, they'll be lined for regulation field hockey, soccer, lacrosse, baseball, softball. We can also have all types of track athletes and football and other sports play on there as well. It's just a great opportunity for our kids and our community to be able to get on there instead of having to go outside of our community for indoor facilities where they have to pay or drive further, when we can do it right here.
So what percentage of currently with the field, the grass field as it is, what percentage of time would you say the students are losing in terms of activity if the field is saturated or unusable?
In a 3-month season, sometimes we could lose up to 20% if we have snow or rain that takes place during the spring season.
So when that happens, the students have essentially nowhere else to train.
Or we make modifications to the game for their training, or we have tryouts in gyms for baseball and softball, as opposed to being out on the field. But
no field setting to train on.
Correct.
So looking to the design of the proposed turf field, would you say it's similar in size and layout to the fields that are currently there?
It's practically identical. We're going to use the existing scoreboards there. We're really just skinning the fields as they are now and laying down a multi-purpose turf field in the same spots pretty much.
Okay. And James, you might have touched on it, but could you just tell the board again what specific sports utilize these fields?
So they are truly multi-purpose. They will be lined following NFHS regulations for field hockey, soccer, and lacrosse. That will go through the outfield of the baseball field, so you can also play baseball and softball in there as well.
So this really does, it benefits all of the students in the school and a lot of the students in the district. As
well as community members too, yes.
Okay, could you elaborate on that? Do you allow community members to come in and use the field?
We do. We also have PE classes that'll be able to take advantage for our curriculum, but outside, we always have, whether it's Lower Gwinnett Township playing there or other organizations that are outside, they use our fields quite frequently.
Okay, and I think that provides the board a nice primer on the project and how it will benefit the school and the community. James, do you have any other elements of the project that you'd like to discuss or inform the board about?
I just really think it's a great opportunity that our school district is providing for our students in our community, because honestly, if the district didn't step up to build these fields, I really wonder where some of our kids would ever get an opportunity to play on a state-of-the-art facility like that.
Okay, thank you, James. That concludes our questioning, but if the board were to have any questions, James is certainly happy to answer them. Okay.
You see if the public has any questions. Doesn't look like it.
Great. So we would then like to call our second witness, Mark Buchwald.
State employee full name, please. Thank you. State employee full name.
Sure. Mark, M-A-R-K. Last name is Buchwald, B as in boy, U-C-H, V as in Victor, A-L-T.
Testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
We'd like to provide the board with what we can mark as applicants exhibit 1. This is Mark's resume. Trying to find out.
I assume you're going to offer him as an expert
That's correct.
in civil engineering.
Correct.
I don't think anybody would have an objection to that. I would recommend to the board that he be so accepted.
All right, then we would offer him as an expert. Thank you. Mark, what is your job? What's your position?
I'm the operations manager for the Bethlehem office of T&M Associates. I do civil engineering.
Okay, and what responsibilities do you have in that position?
So I oversee the preparation of the plans that get submitted to the townships, and I'm the registered PE on the applications and plans that are submitted, and then a lot of other roles managing the office as a whole. But
okay, and did you prepare the plans that we're going to walk the board through?
I did.
Okay. And could you just generally describe the project that we're going to look at here?
Sure. So as you can see on the screen, let me see if this works. Up in the, I think this is the north corner of the property.
Just quickly, I will note that we
Okay.
mark this as applicant exhibit 2, and this is in the bottom right-hand corner. There are numbers. This is marked as 2.
Yep.
Sheet 2 for the board to look at.
Then I assume you want the CV as A1.
Yeah, A1 for CV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So this plan is really just an existing features plan that shows the corner of the high school property where we're going to be installing the turf fields. And what you can see on this plan is a portion of the existing parking lot, some of the existing paths and trails that go through that corner of the site. And then what you see here is the existing baseball field. And then here's the existing softball field. So this is the area of the project. And then I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but this is the little sliver of wetlands here, and also this little pocket at the property line. The 2 areas that we'll be talking about in more detail.
Okay. Would it be helpful to the board if Mark used the laser pointer over on that screen?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
So can you just discuss the high school property generally, sort of what size is the entire property and what size is the field?
Yeah, sure. The overall property, I think, is roughly 97 acres, and the area that we're developing is about 4 to 5 acres.
Okay. Then can you discuss what problems the current design, the current fields are presenting?
Sure, and I think it really just echoes what Jim has already testified that today they just lose a lot of playing time due to the wetness and the seasonal issues you have with the fields where they are and being lawn fields. I'm a soccer coach myself for my kids, and I know how many times I'm sitting there waiting for the phone call to find out that practice is canceled because of the fields, and even though it's not raining, once you go out on fields like that, you can really tear them up when they're wet. Yep.
So looking at the current drainage, if you can, when it rains, how does stormwater sort of currently drain or move in relation to the wetland?
I guess I'll point to this one. So the fields generally drain. Well, that's interesting. It's showing up there, but it does not show
All right, you can
here.
do it.
So I can
We'll just
walk
try.
over. Yep. Yeah, I mean, the fields generally slope to this corner of the site. So they slope from the parking lot. I think that's north. I don't see my north arrow on here. It might be hidden. And then there's also a piping system that comes down, and there's a structure here, and that drains to this wetland. And that's really this wetland here is really more or less a drainage swale that has some wetland plantings. I mean, vegetation that developed in it. But because it's hydraulically connected from here down to the stream, it has some of the plants in it and some of the soils. Our wetland scientists had to flag that as a wetland, but it's really a drainage ditch that takes the water down to the stream. And then again, there's another pipe here that discharges to a swale. And at the very end of that swale, just as you're going off the property, there's this wetlands that's starting to form there. And then the rest of the site really just kind of sheet flows off to the property line.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Just looking at this exhibit, is there anything else you'd like to inform the board about that's specific to this exhibit?
No, I think it really just demonstrates where the fields are today, and that we're generally redeveloping what's already there.
Okay. If we could scroll down to what we'll mark as A3, which is delineated in sheet 4 in the bottom right-hand corner. Mark, can you discuss with the board what this exhibit illustrates?
Sure. This is really just an overall site plan of the high school property, and it shows the new fields in relation to the overall district property on that they own on Houston and Dager Road.
Okay, and looking at the orientation of this property as a whole, are there any other alternatives on site to construction fields?
No, I mean, this is where the fields are today. This is where they make sense to be placed. As Jim mentioned, it's really taking what's there and just replacing it with a turf field. And then obviously you have the parking there adjacent to it.
Okay. And is there anything else about this exhibit that you'd like to note to the board?
No, it's a pretty broad brush exhibit, just showing the overall property. Yep.
Okay, let's move on to the next. We'll mark as A4. And should be at P3 in the bottom right-hand corner. Mark, can you describe this exhibit to the board?
Sure. This is just the layout of the new fields. You can see all the striping and dimensions on there. So this is kind of the layout of the baseball and the softball field. And as Jim mentioned, you'll see that there's additional striping on here that would allow lacrosse and soccer to also be played on the fields. And what you can kind of tell from, well, I should walk over here and show you, is, you know, this fence line that we're putting in is almost identical to where the existing fence line is. We're actually trying to maintain the existing scoreboard. So it just demonstrates that we're really just using the existing fields in their general location today with the addition of the turf fields, the turf surface.
Okay. I think we touched on everything here. Mark, anything else you'd like to note to the board?
No.
All right, so we would move to the next, which we will mark as A5, and which is noted as sheet 5 in the bottom right-hand corner. And Mark, what does this plan show here?
This is our stormwater management plan and grading plan for the fields. So it shows the large underground detention basin that we're putting in under the field, the proposed grading for the field. We are changing the grades of the field a little bit, even though if you go out there today and look at the fields, they look really flat. There is a pretty substantial drop off to center field, so we're trying to make those flatter. It probably doesn't look that way when you're there, but when you're standing in center field, you're significantly lower than home plate and then pitcher's mound. So the big box under the baseball field is our underground detention basin. And then there's another detention basin that's kind of up in this corner here. That's an above ground basin. So you can see that there's some substantial stormwater improvements that we're putting in for the project. So again, just to reorient you to where these wetlands are, because that is mainly the subject of the application, is a thin swale band of wetlands here and a start of a small area of wetlands there. And if you'd like to ask me any more questions, or I can jump into the encroachment.
In terms of how far it's going?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Can you discuss the encroachment?
Yeah, sure. So this is really the main crux of the issue is, so we have these two wetland areas. Now we're not actually filling, grading, or going into the wetlands. There's a buffer requirement that the ordinance says you're supposed to stay a certain distance away. So, you know, right now the existing baseball fields are within that buffer. So to be able to go in, replace them, do some of the grading, and mainly the main encroachment is the outfall grading that we have from our storm sewers. Actually, the Conservation District and DEP want you to try to discharge to water courses and water bodies when they're on your property. So we're following that, and it would just make sense that you need to put the water where it's going. So those are our main areas of encroachment. Again, we're not filling or disturbing the wetlands. We're just grading within proximity to them, which is in violation of the buffer requirements in the ordinance.
Okay, Mark, is it your professional opinion that there is no reasonable engineering alternative for the location of these stormwater management facilities?
No, in fact, like I said, when you're doing post-construction stormwater management design, the conservation and DEP want you to discharge to either a channel or a surface water.
So you would agree that it would be unreasonable to put these stormwater systems elsewhere on the property?
That's correct.
And what would happen if you failed to construct these systems?
It's a requirement, and you know you have to mitigate the runoff.
Okay, and it's correct that the wetlands here will not be filled or otherwise destroyed?
That's correct.
And do you in fact believe that the stormwater management systems to be installed here will be beneficial to the wetlands?
Yeah, I mean, they're right now today you have lawn out there, and even though it's a more natural state, but it also just, you know, lawn is not exactly the most friendly thing for streams and wetlands. They have fertilizers and all kinds of things that are, you know, that are done to maintain them. And right now, so you have these fields that are cut, they're mowed, they're kept very short. So there's not a whole lot of benefit to a wetland having short grass that, you know, we get fertilizer and other treatments, and there's no stormwater management there today. So at least with this project, we're actually going to be installing stormwater management that'll reduce volume and also improve water quality. So there should be actually a benefit to the receiving waters to have these facilities installed.
Okay. So looking to whether these stormwater management systems would have any impact on neighboring properties, would you agree that the proposed use does not adversely affect neighboring properties in any way?
Correct.
And in the same vein, would you agree that the proposed use does not impose upon neighboring land in any way?
Correct.
So
specifically, you know, the use is already there, right? It's already ball fields, and we're replacing it with ball fields.
So you would agree that the stormwater would not in any way be increased in such a way that would adversely affect neighboring properties?
No, we actually have to reduce the stormwater based on DEP requirements. There's certain inherent reductions that are baked into the requirements, so there'll actually be a slight reduction.
Okay. Would you agree that given the use is consistent with the prior use, that the proposed project will blend into the surrounding neighborhood in a harmonious manner?
To the extent they're baseball and softball fields today, that would be correct, yes.
Okay. And would you agree that the proposed use has no additional impact on public utilities or any public service system?
Correct. We don't need, additional sewer capacity or anything like that.
Okay. And is it your professional opinion as an expert in civil engineering that the proposed use, the stormwater management facilities, and the overall project are properly designed and meet objective standards governing proper design from an engineering perspective?
They do, and they were being reviewed by both the township and the conservation district as well.
Okay. If we could just then move to what we would mark as A6, I believe, our rendering. This is just generally to give the board a better sense of the project with color rendering. We would like to move for our exhibits A1 through 6 to be entered on the record.
So admitted.
Thank you, solicitor. And that concludes our questioning for Mark. If the board has any questions they'd like to offer, I'm sure he'd be glad to answer.
I do just have one question. I just
Sure.
want to make sure that I understand your testimony. I'm not an engineer, but my understanding is that the grass is more absorbent of water than the turf may be. So, and I understand your testimony is that there's not going to be additional stormwater runoff to create. I mean, we have some flooding problems in our township. So I just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to not add will there be a little bit of an additional stormwater, or are the improvements that you're making going to control any excess from
Yeah,
the turf?
the improvements that we're making actually will mitigate, if not reduce, the stormwater.
Okay.
Those are the requirements. The lawn out there, I can tell you, is that the way the soils are, I don't think they're absorbing as much as you would think, because it's a pretty low in percolating soil. And even the turf fields, we have to treat it as impervious, but I'm quite frankly not sure why, because these turf fields are basically porous. So everything that rains on it goes right down underneath, and then it gets collected and put into these facilities. But to answer your question in a more short manner, the stormwater will be mitigated in accordance with all the requirements.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I just have rhetorical question, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you say that what is now you're terming wetlands originated as a swale, and then we have this vegetation that naturally pops up, and then we start calling it?
So I can't speak for this wetland up here, but I know that there's a pipe, there's a swale that runs down, and there's a wetland down here. But this feature here, it appears to be a drainage swale that just had over time the ability for wetland type plantings to start to grow in it, because it has the wet soil and wet conditions. Yeah,
It is a wetland.
it is. It was delineated as that by
Big, tall, what do you call those things? The fuzzy head?
the cattails.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this area.
Okay.
I've walked it for about 20 years. And, I understand how wet it gets,
Mm-hmm.
but that particular swale wetland there does a good job at containing it
Mm-hmm.
currently.
So again, we're, our scoreboard is gonna be where the scoreboard is, and you can see the fence. So we're actually just putting ourselves back to where it is, but in order to get in there and do that work and to do the grading and then to discharge our pipe out to this swale, we have to encroach within proximity to those wetlands.
I have one question. When you
Yep.
said you were mitigating stormwater, were you referring to the rate or the quantity, or both?
Both.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we would thank the board for your time and consideration. That concludes our presentation of evidence.
You want to sum up, or waive your summary in light of the fact we're a couple days from Thanksgiving.
Just saying.
Not suggesting that will impact the decision at all.
Right. Just to be brief, we believe that the evidence satisfies the specific objective criteria for conditional use, and we'd be happy to entertain any conditions that the board would require. And that would be my summation.
Thank you. And just for the record, we will be, I believe the board intends to consider this at its meeting of December 13th for a decision.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can close the record.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have the presentation of the preliminary final approval of the Washington School District's land development plan to construct a turf field. I'm not sure who is coming
So
forward.
if you want, I can just, if I can give this back.
Is it on? Not. Sorry.
It's top security.
Thank you so much.
Engineer can do this.
This is how we test your degree.
Yeah, we don't want anyone just working the mic.
You actually have to have a degree to work the mic. Oh,
There you
got
go.
it.
There you go, Mimi.
This one work?
There you go. You could just state your name again. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. So again, Mark Buckwalt with T&M Associates. So, you know, we have two approvals. We have the conditional use, but then we also just need our preliminary final land development approval for the project. The conditional use would be a condition of that approval. I would hope that we could proceed in that manner. Instead of going through a presentation, I think we've already done so with the conditional use. If you want me to walk through anything again, as far as the layout of the project or where it is, or the project itself, but I think we've explained it all with the conditional use hearing that we just went through. It's the resurfacing and reconstruction of these fields for to put synthetic turf down. So what we would hope for tonight is to request preliminary and final land development approval. We were at the Planning Commission. They reviewed our application and approved our project conditioned on the items in the Gilmore letter with a handful of waivers that we requested. I have those waivers if you'd like to look over them. I also have a response letter that I put together to the comments to the Gilmore letter, which basically said that we were going to comply with, you know, the comments and issues in their letter, other than the items that we want to request a waiver for. So I'm happy to present anything else as part of the project in more detail, but we're really hoping tonight just to get a recommendation for approval based on the review letter from Gilmore and the waivers.
Could you, and I don't know if you addressed any of the recommendations from the Montgomery County Planning Commission. Did you receive them and or potentially address any of those?
You know, I'm not sure if I have that letter here.
I don't have a hard copy.
You can have my copy.
Okay, I can just look at it.
Mostly as it related to the design issues. I just wasn't sure if you addressed any of those. And I guess if you could confirm that there'll be no additional off-street parking facilities, but I'm assuming
We're not adding any additional parking. There's already walkways and pathways all throughout this area. and we're proposing a new walkway to the parking lot.
I think
and that path coming from the turf fields up to the parking lot will be ADA accessible, the path that we're installing.
So the new path will be ADA
The new
accessible.
path will be, right. The pedestrian area shading, we are proposing some trees within the detention basin, and we have some replacement trees that we have to place. So I don't see an issue with planting some additional trees. As far as increasing the size of some of the paths and trails, I don't know that we're interested in increasing any of the.
They have. I don't know if our engineer can speak to the size of the trails just to get clarification. For that, I didn't see it in your.
Sorry, I'm not sure if that's all.
I apologize. I assumed you had a copy. I didn't.
Trying to see this.
Jim, do you know? I don't know.
So our path, the path that we're putting in between the two fields is 6 feet. I think
It's 6 feet.
6 feet. And then the path that we're relocating is existing is 7, and we're making it 7. I mean, I don't know that it makes sense to bump it out a foot when the existing path is 7 feet.
Okay. Do you have any input that you could share with us?
Their new paths meet the ADA requirements, and the county has an initiative to have trails be 8 feet wide. It's not really a township policy or any kind of ordinance requirement. So the way we looked at this, we wanted to make sure that their new paths were ADA accessible and that the width of the paths they were extending were going to meet the existing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just didn't see any comments towards it. So that's why I was just trying to clarify. And the pedestrian areas having shading based upon the shade trees that you're placing in?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the pedestrian area will be shaded by you're going to replace with shade trees. Is that what you indicated?
Yeah, so we want to be a little bit careful how we place the trees. We have a lot of replacement trees that we have to put out there because we're cutting some down, and we're happy to plant those trees. I just want to be a little careful. We don't get too close to the ball fields just because of, playing baseball and different sports. You don't want trees right up against the field, but we have a lot of trees that we have to plant. And I was going to suggest that, we show certain plantings for the basin and around the parking lot, but we also have a pretty good number that we have to place. And I was going to suggest that we work with the township and township engineer and maybe walk the site and decide where to put all those replacement trees instead of having to cram them all, where we want to put the baseball fields. And then we're not increasing any parking. And as I mentioned, the path to The field is graded at less than 5%, so that'll meet ADA. So I think that covers all the items in the letter.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes.
Don't have any additional questions or any additional questions from the board?
I have a question. Jim, could you explain comment B10? It seems like it's an either or there, potentially another waiver.
What number did you say? B10.
Yeah. They're required to have a waiver for road frontage improvements along Dager Road, curbs, sidewalk, ultimate right of way, dedication. I don't think that there's really there is an existing sidewalk or curbing along Dager, and with the internal trails, I don't believe that there's a need for those.
So we have a waiver letter that identifies all the comments in the letter that we requested waivers from. So, the planning commission.
Thank you.
That speaks to the same comment, and I don't know if there's
Is that what you were referencing, Neil?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it is a waiver.
It's a waiver, as are all those other
The ones
requests.
in your letter, right? This the dated. July-
Yeah, so like we July 27th, we
Yeah.
issued the letter. They used this to generate their waiver request.
Mhm.
And I don't have an objection to any of their waiver
Thank you.
requests.
Oh, I don't think I have this. I'm
No.
basing it off of your July
Yeah.
27th letter.
That'll help you more.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Are any additional questions from the board? Are there any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. With that, I'd like to make a motion to direct our solicitor to draft resolution related to the land development plan to construct a turf field in the school district. Is there a second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? Motion carries 3-1. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Gotta put a
Happy
Trojan
You too.
head on. I like the Trojan head better.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
We appreciate your time. Next up is approval of funding for the inspection of Ingersoll House. In our manager's report, there was a proposal for an inspection by historic architect, heritage building inspectors, and a recommendation by the historic committee with a request to have Mr. Kibble come?
Bill Kibble, yep.
To conduct an inspection of the Ingersoll property. I think the amount identified in his report was $750. I believe that the historic committee has requested an amount up to $1,500 so as to ensure that all aspects of the Clater Ingersoll house and barn can be inspected. I think it goes through the exterior, interior, and systems that would be inspected, as well as a report and a presentation. And it is outlined in the manager's report. Are there any questions from the board?
Great idea.
Are there any questions from the public? Seeing now, I'm going to put forth a motion for us to approve $1,500, up to $1,500 for heritage building inspectors to conduct a building inspection of the Clater Ingersoll house and barn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Just a logistical question now. Is the historical committee going to be managing that? Do you want somebody in staff to do that? To be the
I
point
think
of
like-
contact, you know?
I think it might logistically make sense for staff to reach out to Mr. Kibble unless somebody identified on the historic committee wants to take the role, but I think it would make sense for us to have someone on staff.
Okay.
Just to keep the historic committee in the loop. If possible, like just to kind of keep the historic committee in loop. Thank you.
Yep, Fred, I've been in touch with Bill, so I can help with that if you're the designated person. Wonderful. So it won't add too much.
Next up, we have the award bid for Dagger Road pedestrian crossing improvements. McMahon Associates had received 3 bids for the reference project. It was included in the manager's report. Those are Carr and Duff, Lenny Electric Corporation, Armor and Sons, and they made a recommendation. An amount of $73,545.20 to the lowest bidder, Carr and Duff. And that was included in the manager's report. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, any questions of Mr. Dixon? Seeing none, I'm going to make a motion for us to accept the recommendation of Carr and Duff in the amount of $73,545.20. Is there a second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then just real quick in terms of schedule, we're looking at a spring construction. We have to wait for the poles associated with the flashers to come in, which takes some time. So
Okay,
looking at a spring construction, hopefully completed by early summer at the latest.
that would be exciting. Thank you. It's a long time coming. Thank you. Next up are proposals related to, actually it's award bid for televising and cleaning sanitary sewer lines. Proposals were received on November 16th. They were included as reference in our letter from our engineer. I think our request was from 4. We actually received 2. The lowest bidder was Sewer Specialty Services Corporation Incorporated in the amount of $28,209. Gilmore and Associates made the recommendation for us to contract the project to Sewer Specialty Services Incorporation and outlined that in our letter. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions of the public? Questions of our engineer? Seeing none.
So the request is for you to authorize the work up to $30,000, which is what Mimi and I had discussed as the remaining budget for this year.
I did read it in the last line and I was going to say it in the motion, but thank you for your assistance.
I just wanted to head off any confusion.
So based upon the township's budgeted amount, the project, I'm going to make a motion for us to make a motion to authorize Sewer Specialty Services Services Company Incorporated for amount not to exceed $30,000 for the remainder of 2022. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much, and thank you for the assist, Mr. Hirsch. Next up is approval for tapping fee proposal from Keystone Alliance Consulting. Keystone Alliance Consulting is pleased to submit the proposal to provide Lower Gwinnett Township with sewer tapping fee study in accordance with PA Act 57. And they outlined their services. The proposal is to be performed with a lump sum amount of $4,000. Are there any questions from the board? None. Any questions from the public? Make a motion to accept the Keystone Alliance Consulting tapping fee proposal of $4,000. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Have members of the board had a moment to review the minutes from our November 8th meeting? Are there any questions or concerns or comments? It should be November 7th because November 8th we did not meet. Thank you so much, Jamie, for that assist. So I make a motion to approve the minutes for our November 7th, 2022 meeting. Is there a second? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next up is committee reports. I believe it was historic committee met. I'll just give a brief overview. They kind of reviewed the proposal for Mr. Kibble related to the inspection of the Ingersoll house as well as the barn. They discussed some other proposals that have came in regarding the Ingersoll house and outlined next steps. They also identified historic properties within our township and kind of asked the supervisor liaisons to reach out to township staff as well as the county potentially to see if there's a GIS system so that we can track not only where historic houses may be located, but actually the build date. So we're looking into that with staff and potentially with the county to see if there is any record where we could determine all of the homes that were built in 1600, 1700, et cetera, moving forward. They also identified that the Montgomery County 2050 plan is currently accepting feedback and wanted to ensure that everybody was aware that the Montgomery County plan was accepting feedback related to their new comprehensive plan, especially as it related to the historic nature of our county as well as our municipality. They wanted to include potential identification of landmarkers moving forward and the ability to request them and outline a process for them. It was a very fruitful meeting, but that's kind of where we stood with that. And was there any additional meetings?
I think the EAC met. I think it's going to be the last formal meeting of the year. They sort of took stock of what projects were successful, including the tree giveaway. They discussed expanding it in the future, including, expanding the number of trees so that more residents have access to the giveaway. And they also discussed, the different types of trees. It seemed like the flowering trees went way faster than the shade trees. So sort of kind of balancing that when they add additional trees moving forward. Talked about other initiatives similar to the tree giveaway where they can sort of educate the public on an environmental initiative and then also give something to the public to get people more excited about it, like we've done in the past with rain barrels. I believe Parks and Rec met too, right, Kath, since our last meeting.
Right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. We discussed the strategic plan for our parks. We had sort of a kickoff committee meeting for that, and sort of kept the Parks and Rec Committee in the loop on what those priorities are and next steps. We talked about events, future events, and partnering with Scoogy and other, community partners to put on fun and festive events like they did the tapping of the Great Pumpkin Race. What am I missing?
I think that's about it. I'm just moving into a programming mode.
Yep.
Trying to line up some programs.
And then the other committees met?
I think so. EMS has not met, correct? I think that's it. Yeah. That's good. Next is staff updates. Any staff have updates?
So one quick one, the elected auditors are meeting on Tuesday, December 6th at 5 o'clock, which means the audit will be done by then and ideally a little before. And because it just seems to be pouring on the finance department now, they've started the process of upgrading Munis. So everybody can look forward to more changes that way.
Is that the audit meeting? It's a public meeting, so the supervisors can attend and we don't run into. Will it be by Zoom too or no? Okay, just wondering.
Is it open to the public? Okay.
Usually you don't get a big crowd.
No?
Thus, it's in the caucus. Right?
Are there any additional staff updates?
Yes, real quick. This will be in next month's
monthly report, but I want to bring it to your attention because the month of December kind of flies for everybody. So about 2 months ago, we sent 2 officers to a training that was titled The History of Policing and Cultural Diversity, put on by the state police. And they both came back with high marks on how well the training was and that they actually learned from it. So next week, we're sending everybody. It's 3 nights. We let the officers pick what night they wanted to go. And Montgomery County is hosting it at the Public Safety Building. Oh. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of it, that it's put on by the state police, and I'm going to read you one quick sentence. It's a factual and enlightening look at both the history of policing and the role of law enforcement in past and present injustices. So when you say that, you get everybody's attention real quick. So these guys went to the school and they said it just really opens everybody's eyes in policing today and how it's changed, and how underserved communities are met with police. And I was really happy when the 2 guys came back and said, how well it was, and they recommended that other officers go to it. So we're sending everybody.
Is this open to the public? I'm assuming no.
It is not. If I can get you any documentation, any handouts or anything, I'll get them for you, Danielle, and I'll get you his information. Sounds like he's a dynamic speaker.
Awesome.
Okay.
Excellent.
And our community service unit will be involved with the Hamburg Christmas Parade this year. So we're going to put a couple officers in the truck. We're going to have we haven't figured out what we're going to, people throw candy and different things. We're trying to do something unique, and we're working on that, but we'll be involved in that.
Awesome.
Okay. That's all. Happy Thanksgiving.
Is that December 3rd?
Saturday, December 3rd. Yes.
You're going to be in the actual parade.
The community service truck will be.
Awesome.
Correct. So I'm sure it'll be a highlight.
Yeah, come up with something good. Right?
We're trying. Yeah.
I'll be walking in it. I'm walking with the Girl Scout Winter Wonderland theme. So
yeah.
I'll see you there.
Okay, cool. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any additional staff updates? No? Awesome. Next up is supervisor comments, Kat.
Just happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We have lots to be grateful for, including all of you guys. Enjoy the time off.
Yes, a couple comments. One, our police department is doing the Toys for Tots too. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we're doing that. I don't know when the last day for collection is. I think
early December, they said.
We said early December, but I don't.
Yeah, Dan said they'll be by probably the second Friday to pick it up.
Okay.
To pick them up, and they're pretty full out there. So
okay, maybe we can do like a final sort of blast with the end date, because I think the graphic that we posted just says early December. Just to encourage to get their last minute gifts in. Also wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And I also just wanted to comment on, well, in light of yesterday being Trans Remembrance Day, and we had on the eve of Trans Remembrance Day, the horrible shooting in Colorado Springs. I just wanted to let everybody know that our Human Relations Commission is going to be hopefully having their first meeting within the next 2 weeks. One of their main express priorities is doing outreach in our community and trying to make sure everybody feels safe and feels welcome, and encouraging training and encouraging diversity and inclusion awareness and acceptance and tolerance and all of those things. So I just felt like I needed to sort of speak on that and let the community know that the Human Relations Commission is going to make that kind of outreach a priority.
Thank you. I'm going to echo everything that everyone said. Wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
I don't know.
Why didn't we get that? Yeah, that's what I was thinking.